I was kind of having to let go of photography a little bit. I knew I needed to not necessarily like niche down at the studio, but I knew I needed to like pinpoint what clients that I did want here. Like, what was I gonna do? I couldn't keep like running myself thin on some photography gigs, some videography gigs out in the field, some podcast stuff here in the studio. So I just kind of had to commit to like creating the space. And it really was when I leaned into podcasting and leaned into just creating the vibe at the studio. Like, I think for too long, I was like, what do I need to do at the studio to make money? And that meant like, oh, I need some photography stuff. I need some video stuff. I need some podcast stuff, as opposed to like creating an environment that just like attracted that type of clientele that I wanted.
Hey, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Studio. If you're new here, welcome. This is a channel where I talk about what it takes to own a studio. I own a photography and a podcast studio, and today we're chatting with Logan Lepper, who also owns a podcast studio here in Austin. If you're familiar with the channel, you have met Logan before. We did an episode early on with Logan, and then I did a studio tour. That tour is up on YouTube. You may have seen that as well. So if you're curious to learn a little bit more about Logan and to see his studio, head on over to YouTube. Or if you're already on YouTube, click the button or the link or wherever it is and check out his studio tour. So this conversation was great with Logan. I love chatting with him. He is a wealth of insight. And, one of the main things we focused on was focusing on what you need to focus on in your studio, because I often fall into the trap of trying to do too many things. And that's just kind of, in this podcast, I call it the artist trap, right? Because we love doing so many things that we end up just kind of doing a little bit of everything. But what Logan talked about is that he had to kind of give up photography to really focus on the content creation and the podcasting within his studio. And when he did that, it flourished. So we talk a lot about that in this podcast. And we also talk about some hard lessons that we learned. And, both of us kind of shared lessons about pricing and charging the clients up front and making sure, you got everything laid out, all the expectations are met between us, the studio owners, and then the clients. So we talked a lot about that as well. Anyways, thanks for being here. Without further ado, let's get in to chatting with Logan Lepper. Logan, thanks for being here once again on the podcast. How's it going, man?
Good, man. How long ago was that other podcast? I feel like that was like 3 years ago.
Yeah, not quite 3 years ago, but definitely probably a year ago. And then we did a YouTube tour of your studio, which was great. I still get comments all the time on that video, and I go back and watch it to like retake those tips to apply to my studio. So yeah, definitely. If anybody hasn't seen those, go check them out.
What about but I'm talking about the one where I came up to your studio.
Yeah, that one was a year ago.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
Yeah, one of the early episodes. So yeah, that was the first time we met. Anyways, so I wanted to jump in and do just kind of an episode talking about like common pitfalls that studio owners kind of find themselves falling into, because I know there are some common pitfalls that I fall into as a photographer and videographer, and now a studio owner. There's definitely lessons that I should be learning, but I seem to like always not learn those lessons. We'll talk about those. But yeah, I want to just kind of jump in. What are some like common fails or like, some common hard lessons that you've had to learn?
I mean, my hardest lesson early on with the studio was like invoicing, billing, collecting credit cards, having a credit card on file. Like early on, it was, there wasn't even like a deposit thing I had set up. It was more just like you paid on the day of like using the studio. I didn't have a way to process anything yet at that time. A lot of my stuff went through Peerspace, so it was fine for that. And then the other way, I don't know, I just wasn't comfortable, I guess, with like asking for a deposit at that time, just having not run the business very long and just not being very like business savvy with what I was doing here. So yeah, my toughest one was definitely just like billing and credit card and all that stuff now, which now it's like you have to pay for it all up front to book it. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And that's the good thing about Peerspace. Like, Peerspace takes a chunk of the money, of course, right? But they just make it so easy because people first of all, it's easy for your clients to find you if they're coming from out of town or something, and then they pay for it up front. It's the contract is all through Peerspace. You get paid. It's very easy through Peerspace.
Yeah. So I didn't have a lot of people like skip out on any payments. I just had one where it was my own fault. I just kept being the nice guy and was like, they were using it after this comedy club or comedy group of comedians or whatever was using the studio after hours, and I was like, oh man, this is a nice chunk of change, and it's not during regular business hours, so I can still make money, during regular business hours, and I'll just let them do it. Kept asking to get a card on file, need a card on file. He's like, oh, I'll get it, or oh, I'm just waiting for this payment to come through, or this, or whatever. And it just slowly progressed, and like the tab just kept getting higher and higher. And then finally, I can't remember, like I basically had kind of cut them off, but then he just sort of he just ghosted. He was,
oh no.
Yeah. Which sucked because like I honestly thought he was kind of a good dude, and then, just ended up being shitty.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had plenty of times where very similar, like the money aspect, the hard lesson learned, right? Get people to pay up front, because even if you trust people, business is kind of different from personal life. I'm kind of learning, because like in my personal life, like I'm a really good guy. Like in all aspects of my life, I'm a really good guy. I'm a really kind guy. I trust people. I always give people the benefit of the doubt. In business, that kind of bites me in the butt sometimes, because just like what you were just explaining, like, I always trust that people are going to show up on time and treat the studio with respect, and then leave when they're supposed to, and then pay what they're supposed to. But yeah, there's been multiple instances, just kind of like what you just said, where they kind of don't hold up their end of the bargain. And at the end of the day, like I could be frustrated with them and point the finger at them, but at the end of the day, it's my fault as the physicist.
I mean, I looked at it that way too. I'm like, this is my fault for doing it. And, luckily it wasn't like a super hard hit, because like I said, it was after hours, but it definitely taught me that lesson. Like I was like, all right, I guess we're collecting money up front now, and I need a credit card on file, and I would much rather now collect the money up front, and if somebody cancels and they do get their money back, I'll eat the fee for the transaction or whatever. I'm like, whatever, that's part of doing business. But yeah, now it's just like, you got to pay up front.
Yep, always up front. Yeah, I had a photo shoot come through, and this was one of those scenarios where I didn't get them to pay up front. It was somebody that just walked in the door, and I never like when people just walk in the door and they're like, hey, can we have a photo shoot? Because it's like, I have tons of things that I'm always doing, right? I'm editing, I'm setting up, I could be even shooting a podcast, so oftentimes I lock the door. But for whatever reason, this door was not locked, and I was in here, and a guy walked in and he wanted family photos, and so I was like, great, that's fine. And he was like, can we do them right now? And I was like, no, we gotta, you gotta set up a time. So we set up a time for like the following day. And yeah, it was just very like, I didn't do a contract. I didn't talk about how much it was gonna cost up front. I kind of told him my hourly rate, but we never decided on like how many hours it's gonna take, how many pictures is he gonna get. We didn't talk about style. It was just very quick and like, unprofessional would be a good word for it, right? I was just like, yeah, I'll take your pictures. And he came, and the next day we took photos. But the photo session itself was a nightmare. It was like, I love kids. I got kids of my own. They had kids, and one of the kids was running rampant in the studio, knocked over a C-stand. Luckily, it didn't hit anybody. It hit the floor, chipped my floor, so I had to like fix the floor after they left. They went overtime. I told them how much it was going to cost at the end of the day, and they didn't like that, so we had to bargain. Anyways, it was a nightmare. So the lesson learned from that is like, don't be like too trusting, right? Don't be too trusting with clients, even if they are good people, they have good intentions. Don't be too trusting. You got to kind of cross your T's, dot your I's and cross your T's, and get payment up front. So I've had multiple lessons like that. Like you'd think I would learn, but again, I'm always just kind of like, yeah, sure, you do your thing, show up, it'll all be good.
I set very clear expectations on price now. So Yeah. And if
Yeah.
anything, if somebody's like, hey, can you just give me a ballpark? I'm like, all right, well, that ballpark's going to be about 2,000 higher than what it probably will cost, just
Yep.
so your expectations are set properly.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we always get, I mean, that's something too, like pricing is so tricky because we'll get people who want to do like a project, especially with video production. A lot of those projects are bigger, right? They're going to take a couple weeks. They're going to be multiple days of editing and revisions. So it's bigger than just a simple photo shoot. But we try to set those expectations early on because if the price is too high, then they just need to leave and go find someone else.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Because I don't want to waste their time anymore. They don't need to waste my time. So if somebody sends an email or calls and they say, hey, what would be a ballpark for like, or they don't even start talking price just yet. They start talking about the project and how much it would cost. And I'm like, well, what's your budget? What do you have in mind that you want to spend? And then typically they don't have an idea. They're like, well, I'm just shopping around for a price right now. But if they do have a budget in mind, that's always like a home run. We're like, oh my gosh, this client actually knows what they want to spend. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But if they don't know how much they want to spend, then yeah, just like what you said, like I will ballpark and I'll be like, well, typically a project like this will cost anywhere between $8,000 and $15,000, right? Like they kind of give them a range depending on the project. And it might be lower. If it's a small project, it might be $3,000 to $5,000. But that at least gives them an idea so they can either walk because they were wanting to spend like $400, or they could be like, yeah, that seems reasonable. Let's continue the conversation. But you got to have those conversations early on, because if you go back and forth and have multiple meetings and then you talk price and then they walk away, well, that's all those hours wasted of your life.
Yeah. I even now look at the price that I'm giving. Like, I'll like read a client basically. Like, I can kind of tell like what, socioeconomic, spending, financial, what they are willing to budget. Like, I can get a pretty good read on what they're doing. And I look at it as like a vetting system almost now for me. Like, I had a person call me the other day, and he's like, oh, I see it's like a 2-hour minimum for video and it's this price. And I'm like, yeah, but I'll do a 1 hour with you, because honestly, in that 1 hour, I want to find out if you want to work with me and if I want to work with you. Maybe we don't like each other in that hour, and I would much rather just charge you for an hour, pass off your footage to you if it didn't go so well, wish you the best of luck.
Yeah. Yeah, I always like to, I check out their email address and then I go to their URL. I check out the company, because if it's like a law firm, then they're going to have money. But if it's a mom and pop bakery, then it might be a little bit different quote.
Yeah.
So
I actually learned that lesson on my Houston consulting gig right now. Should have charged way more, because he's a lawyer. Lots of money.
You give them the price and they're like, yeah, sounds good.
Yeah,
and you're like,
no hesitation. They didn't even, when I was sending over furniture recommendations, she didn't even ask for what the price of the furniture was. She's just
That's
like, I'm just like, do you approve this? She's like, yep. I'm like, all right, cool.
Those are good clients. Yep. Yeah, so like we play, I have an admin on my team. I have a studio manager. Her name is Taylor. She's been on the podcast, so some people might be familiar with her. And we play this good cop, bad cop thing, like kind of unintentionally. Like, I'm the good cop, right? Whenever there's an initial interaction between me and the client. Again, I always just kind of trust them, and if they ask for a discount, my initial inclination is to be like, sure, I'll give you a discount. No harm, no foul, I'll give you 4 hours for the price of 3 if that works for you. But then Taylor always steps in and she's always like, whoa. What are you doing? You have a business to run. Like, the numbers have to make sense. Like, just say no. And if it doesn't work for them, then they can hit the highway and go to some other cheaper studio in town, right? We're not the cheapest studio in town by design. So anyways, we always play this good cop, bad cop. And if I didn't have Taylor, I would find myself in even more pickles than I kind of find myself in right now.
I always had this fantasy that I would get like the studio owners together and be like, hey, we should just all charge this rate. Everybody go higher right now.
Yeah.
And so when everybody is looking, it's just like all the same rates. And they're like, well, this is, I guess, what we have to pay.
Yep. And I feel like that probably naturally happens anyways. Like,
it does. I saw
a rising tide lifts all boats.
Like back in the day when I boosted my rates on Peerspace, like another studio boosted their rates.
Oh yeah. How many reviews do you have on Peerspace now?
I don't know, just under 200, I think, 190-ish.
Oh man, so you're gonna hit 200 pretty soon.
Yeah, but my Peerspace rentals have slowed way down. I only get maybe like 1 a month sometimes now, maybe 2.
Yeah. I think it's the same with me, actually. It's kind of slowed down, and it'll have seasons. Like, sometimes it'll be like 3 a week, but then sometimes it'll be crickets for a few weeks. And I have one tomorrow for the production studio in the back, not for the podcasting. Most of my Peerspace bookings are for the production studio in the back, the psych wall and the photography area.
Yeah.
Not really much for the podcasting studio, which is crazy because yours is only for podcasting, right? Your Peerspace listing is only for podcasting.
I mean, or just like shooting any other video content.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do some of those Peerspace bookers, they're not all doing podcasts. Some of them are just doing
I've had some that like are booking for like corporate talking head stuff or like documentary interviews or things like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, another hard lesson for me learned early on was that everything is more expensive than I initially planned for it to be. Like when I first moved into this space, it's a large space, right? We got 2,800 square feet, just over 2,800. And we gutted everything because it wasn't in the best condition. So like we knocked a wall down, we pulled the floor up, we put new flooring down, we built a psych wall, of course. Like we did a bunch of renovations here. And so I priced it all out. I even got quotes from the contractor, but it inevitably ended up being a little bit more expensive because there's always stuff that comes up, right? Yeah. And the flooring itself was like crazy expensive. It was like just for the parts or just for like the floor panels was like $8,000. And then of course they have to install it. So anyways, I kind of learned to like price it out, but then add like 15 to 20% and just in case, because it will inevitably be more expensive.
Yeah. On that note, it was always inevitably more expensive for me because early on was like, oh, where can I cut corners and like buy a cheaper light or a cheaper rug or something like that. And then inevitably I just end up upgrading it down the road. It like never fails. So
buy once, cry once is a phrase that my buddy Ian always likes to say. Yeah. You buy once and you cry over it, but then that's it. You only cry once and you're done. Yeah. I fall into that trap all the time. I'll buy. And it kind of depends. Sometimes I'll like test out an idea by buying cheap plants or something. And then I'm like, oh, I like these plants. Or I like the idea of plants. And so then I buy more expensive plants or something like that. But yeah, definitely.
My problem is once I started to go like higher quality, because I'm very much like an energy person. And so it's like the second certain things had, better quality and like higher vibration is like what I like to call it. Then all of a sudden, all the cheap stuff like really stands out, and I'm like, oh no, we have to start replacing it all now.
Yeah, it's like renovating a house. That's kind of how it was in our house. Like we got a new fridge, and then I looked around the kitchen and I was like, oh dear, everything else sucks. So we raised the quality of everything.
Yeah.
So
yeah, totally.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, one kind of final like I wouldn't even call it a curveball, but one lesson that I've learned is that like when I built this studio, I think I did not expect it to take over my life as much as it has. And I love what I do. And I think that's why it's taken over my life is because I do love it. I'm here every day. I'm pouring my heart and soul.
Often? What are your hours? What are you there?
So now I'm here Monday through Friday. Mm-hmm. Sometimes on the weekends, even if like this Sunday, I'll do a Mother's Day shoot. So that's a Sunday thing, and then we'll do another Mother's Day shoot coming up. But typically Monday through Friday, most of the day. Yeah, I'm moving a little bit farther away from the office. I'm in a transition, moving to a new house, so I'll be like 45 minutes at least from the office. So at that point, I will probably work from home a couple days a week, which is good because like when I work from home now, it's good for me because when I walk in this studio, I look around and there's so many things to do, right? Yeah. There's so many like things that need to get done. I need to clean this. I need to arrange this. I need to tidy this up. I need to edit this. I need to send an email or whatever. There's literally probably a million things that I could be doing at any given second when I'm here at the studio. So when I force myself to stay home, then that narrows down and it allows me to focus on just a few things that I need to get done on the business, whether that's finance or admin or marketing or just chilling for a few hours. You know what I mean? Those days are good too. So all that to say, currently 5 days a week in studio, in the near future, probably 3 days a week in the studio.
So then you said her name's Taylor. She runs it the days you're not there?
Yep. Yeah. So she's remote. So Taylor's remote.
Oh, okay.
She is local, but she works remote, so she can come in if she has a need to come in. So we'll do like a monthly team meeting, and then when we have external events, she'll come in just to provide support for those events. But most of the time, she works from home.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what will you do, say, on like if you work from home for a couple of days, if you have like bookings at the studio on those days?
So I have a podcast producer named Colin. He sets up the cameras. He pushes the buttons. He can. He's new to this company. He's only been here a couple weeks, but once he gets fully trained up, he'll be able to do everything without me. Yeah. So he would be able to run the podcasts whenever I'm not here.
Yeah. How long have you guys?
Yeah.
How many years have you been open now?
Roundmark Studio has been open for over 3 years. So probably 3 years and 3 months, something like that.
Do you have a 2026 goal for what you want to make, or what you want the studio to bring in?
No, I need to write that down though.
Yeah, you get that goal, Brent.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. That's how you achieve goals. You write them down.
Yeah. Or at least speak them.
Yep. Yeah, at least speak them. Yeah, manifest them. Yeah, we did years ago. I sat down and wrote down some personal goals that I had that included a little bit of business. It was before I had the studio. I wrote them down as like a 10-year goal, a 5-year goal, 1-year goal, and then 6-month goal, yada, yada. And then like I forgot about the list. You know, I never looked at it again. I kind of tucked it away and just forgot it was there. And then a few years later, I stumbled upon the list and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Let me look at it. And I had done everything that I'd said I was going to do, even without looking at the list. I'd just written it down, and I had kind of taken all this, everything that's up here, and just kind of put it out into the world onto a sheet. And then without even looking at it for the next few years, I was still able to accomplish those goals. So You're right about that. Write down your goals.
The magic of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
I had to get a small business loan a few years back, or it was a little over 2 years ago. And I remember when I was putting the projected business plan together and projected stuff. This was before I was really pulling like retainers. It was like probably at the toughest time of the studio revenue wise. And then it was also like right when my daughter was born too. So I was like, ugh. And it's crazy, the projections that I put on there for not like I didn't even have the idea of like getting retainer clients. That wasn't even on there. It was more just like, oh, could I get maybe 2 people to, you know, do a whole podcast season with me and make like $10,000 on podcast season. And so I'd only put like 2 on the projected sheet for a year, and then like, you know, X amount for renters through Peerspace. And I remember I went back and looked at it because I'd kind of forgotten, and then it dawned on me that it's like, oh, I thought it was going to be such a big deal to be able to get 2 $10,000 season shooters, and now like essentially I'm getting double that every month from like retainer clients. Like that thought hadn't even come through of like retainer. It's just the fact that I wrote something down that said $5,000 or $10,000 on it, and then all of a sudden it's like somehow that manifests itself.
Yeah. Was there a key moment, like a turning point, that allowed that to happen, you think?
Yeah, I mean, it was the beginning of 2025, or I mean, it kind of started to happen in 2024. I was kind of having to let go of photography a little bit. It's like what I knew I needed to, not necessarily like niche down at the studio, but I knew I needed to like pinpoint what clients that I did want here. Like, what was I going to do? I couldn't keep like running myself thin on some photography gigs, some videography gigs out in the field, some podcast stuff here in the studio. So I just kind of had to commit to like creating the space. And it really was when I leaned into podcasting and leaned into just creating the vibe at the studio. Like, I think for too long I was like, what do I need to do at the studio to make money? And that meant like, oh, I need some photography stuff, I need some video stuff, I need some podcast stuff, as opposed to like creating an environment that just like attracted that type of clientele that I wanted. So it was kind of the start of 2024. I leaned a little more into that. I pumped more money into the studio as far as like interior design and things like that. And then 2025, I think we talked about this before, like letting go of photography completely at the beginning of 2025 and focusing solely on the studio and podcasting and content and things like that. And so
Nice.
2025 was the year that it like really took off. And I think it's because I was willing to let go of photography.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's kind of hard to hear too, because like I fall into that trap, and I think that's like the artist's trap. Is we all try to do too much because we love doing all the things. Like I love taking photos, I love taking video, I love editing, I love visual effects, I love directing, I love podcasting, I love building the studio, I love it all. But you're right. Like if I try to do it all, and I'm kind of like what you just said, where I'm always trying to think like, what can I do to bring in a little bit more revenue? For like, what different thing can I do? What different thing can I do here and there? But yeah,
I found it much easier to go after the bigger fish in podcasting as opposed to just trying to constantly catch a bunch of little fish in different areas, in different mediums, like whether it was photography or video or all that stuff. So yeah, it really was, it is kind of like you say, the artist trap a little bit. That was something I had to let go of, like that identity of artist. Like, sure, it's still in me, but like, I love being a businessman more. I love making money more than being an artist. So I think it's almost like I found the artistry in running the business. So that is like satisfying and fulfilling to me now.
Yeah. I mean, again, this business has like kind of taken over my life in a good way, but I love it. It's what wakes me up in the morning. It's what keeps me up at night. But yeah, I think entrepreneurs, like we wouldn't have it any other way. Like, could we go work 9 to 5 and make probably a larger salary? Like, but
I thought about that when my daughter was born, at the end of 2022. 2023 was the hardest year. Like, it was basically being an entrepreneur, and the equivalent of living paycheck to paycheck was 2023. And then having 2 kids, and it was a little dicey. And I remember thinking like, oh, should I just like go get a regular job? And I was like, I don't even know what I would do. Like, so I was like, no, this is pretty much, I'm in this.
Yep. Yeah. Love it. Yep. We're all in it. It's messy, it's stressful, but I don't think I
love coming to work every day. I don't ever have that thought of like, oh man, I have to go into work today. If your studio could be filled with the ideal client or the perfect wheelhouse, like what's your favorite client to have in there that you're like, man, if I could just get these every day, like what would it be?
And I'm always torn with this because I have 2 parts of the business, right? I have the photography studio side, and then I have the podcasting studio side. And those are very different clientele, right? There's really no crossover. I've never had a photographer also pay me for podcasting services and vice versa. So if I could choose just like one, I don't know if I would choose the photography side of it or the podcasting side of it, because I love podcasting, but I also love being able to have a studio for photographers to come and use. And it's also very, like I don't have to be back there to hold their hand to take photos. Right. Like they rent on the weekend, they let themselves in. I don't even show up on the weekends. So it's a little bit easier revenue, whereas podcasting, it's more hands-on. I have to talk with them. I have to push the buttons. I have to do a little bit of editing and stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe that's something I need to define, is like, who is my ideal like avatar, right? Who's my ideal client? Is it a high-end photographer who has a budget to rent a high-end studio, or is it a podcaster or somebody wanting video content that comes in on a regular basis? Right now I've got a little bit of both.
That was, again, something that really gave my studio direction, and I think kind of what got it shot out like a rocket ship was once I defined my avatars. I was like, oh, these are the 3 types of people I want in here, and I'm only going to speak to those 3. Like, now I have no problem if somebody calls in and they're not one of those 3 people. I'm like, we can't serve you here. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, and I look at our revenue breakdown, and I'll see some months it's 50-50, some months podcasting is a little bit more. And I think I resonate more with the podcast aspect of my business, right? Because my background is video production, storytelling through and through. I've edited the bajillion videos telling stories, and so that's what podcasting is, right? It's an interview where you're telling a story.
Yeah.
The photography studio, again, it's fun, but at my core, I'm not a portrait or studio photographer.
Yeah.
I do it a little bit, but at my core, I'm a visual storyteller. So I don't know. That's interesting though.
Do you have enough podcast business that, or do you get any other clients just like batch shooting content? Like they just want to come there and it's not necessarily a podcast, or maybe just shooting it for like their Instagram or LinkedIn or something like that?
A little bit. We had a guy who did a course. So we did like a talking head into a teleprompter.
Yeah.
We've had a couple others like that, but when they batch, they'll only batch for like 2 hours. So it's not a huge batch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have enough podcast? Like, would you ever consider turning the photography studio into a different set?
I don't think right now, but my lease is up in a couple years, right? I signed a 5-year lease and we're 3 years in. So I've got just under 2 years left. And so I've thought a lot about that. I've thought a lot about like, what does the future of my studio look like? Is it similar to what we have here? Do I need to expand? Do I need to, again, cut off the photography part of it and just do podcasting? Like, does that make sense? Maybe move into a smaller facility that's a lot cheaper, that's easier to manage. I've thought about all that. So I've got 2 years till I can make a decision. Yeah. But I think in the back, I'm going to keep it just, it's working as is, right? And I'm going to keep funneling marketing into it and keep building the revenue. So
nice. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. It's crazy. All the things that you have to think about as a business owner, like we a lot of us start just as a kid with a camera, and then you learn how to make a little bit of money using that camera, and then you build it up, and then you open a business, and now you're a businessman. It's like an ever evolving thing.
I know. I never, now I have 2 editors and a virtual assistant, and I never really thought I'd be managing employees. I just always thought I'd kind of do it myself. But I'll tell you what, it's really nice to not edit anymore.
Oh, I believe it. I know. I know. One of my editors, he took on a big job, so he's not able to edit for me like for a whole month. And so I'm having to pick up some of his slack, and I'm like, man, I don't miss this. Like, I love editing at its core. Like, I teach an editing class, for crying out loud. Like, I genuinely love it, but I don't need to be spending like 6 hours a day editing. I need to be spending all that time doing other stuff now. Yeah.
Can I give you another piece of advice that really shifted kind of the trajectory of the business for me?
Yep, please do.
You really need to, it's time to get into like big picture CEO mindset. Like, I think when I hear that, you're still doing a little of this, a little of that, a little of this, believe me, I get it on the artistry side of things. I get it on the revenue side of things, but your energy bandwidth to grow and really like make more money, you have to be willing to put like all of that aside and only focus on like, okay, what's the next step for expansion or for making more money? Like you'll go through a 3, 4, 5 month period where that feels really weird. Like that's what started for me last October. And now I'm kind of through the other side of it on 5, 6 months now. And it's like been a dramatic, huge shift of being able to allocate my energy into more of the big picture. For me, I do have the product thing going on, but like really understanding like what I wanted to do with the studio and how I want to serve those specific clients and the ones that are going to bring a lot more money into the studio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate hearing that. And yeah, it's tough to hear that because I know it's true, but
you got to get out of the weeds, man. You got to get out of the weeds.
I know, man.
Yeah.
The artist in me is like, no, I want to be doing all the things. It's fun. It's what you do. So Yeah. On that topic of the product, how's the release of your?
It's good.
Your
I mean, good.
product
We're still
going?
planning on spring equinox. I've just been pumping out content, just trying to remain consistent with it and just get a little bit of momentum going, and then launch the Kickstarter.
Okay, so you're launching a Kickstarter.
Yeah. We're gonna do a Kickstarter. We only need to raise like 50K, so
Okay.
I think we can make that happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And for anybody listening, like who has not heard of your product, like I want you to give a spiel, but like you've designed like a very elegant podcast mic stand.
That's it. We're just starting with that, and we started with a desk stand just because we had to bootstrap this thing, and that was the easiest, least mechanical type of mic stand to design. Although we still had to go through like 5 prototypes to get it right. We're actually in the midst of getting our last 2 like kind of off-white beige prototypes here in the next like couple weeks. Probably we'll have them right around launch time. And then we're already starting to design the boom arm and then the standing mic stand, like the ones that you'll put next to a chair.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
So you're moving on to products 2 and 3 already, or the ideas.
I mean, the designs are already like in my head. It's just a matter of like the boom arms coming off the desk. There's just, we're talking springs and elbows and things like that we're going through all the testing for which one specifically is going to work the way we want it to. So you literally have to order like 15 or 20 different little elbow pieces or spring loaded elbows and things like that. So we're kind of going through, we need to find the mechanisms first, and then you start to build out the aesthetic design from that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so if anybody wants more info, syncd.com, sync-d.com, and you're going to be launching a Kickstarter. Yeah, we'll definitely be sure to keep an eye on that.
Cool.
As far as the mic arm, have you checked out, I know you've done your research, I'm sure, but like the ones we use are Gator Frameworks. They're pretty good. It has an integrated mic cable, and then Rode has their version as well. Like,
Rode has their colors coming out now, but it's still, how do I put this? Well, speaking of artistry, I want mine to be a piece of art. Like, it's not going to look like a technical component for a mic. It's going to look like an art installation holding a mic. My thing is like everything's film now. So it's like, I want somebody to look at it and not notice that it's like holding a mic. Like, I want it to be more like you look at it and you're like, oh, what's that piece of art? Like what's that piece of art holding this mic? Like, why does this look so different?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, best of luck. I'll keep an eye out on the Kickstarter. Logan, thanks again for being a guest on here. You're a regular. We'll have you back soon.
I enjoy it. I don't get on many podcasts, so yeah, maybe it's something I should start trying to get on more.
Well, awesome. Thanks, man.
All right, appreciate you.